So we're going to India, and I'm really excited about sharing this part of the trip with you because this has been the whole reason I wanted to do the podcast, because I wanted to share India.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot about India. I'm gonna start by reading my first journal entry about India because I think that it.
How about before you do that, first tell us why you chose India.
So my brother has kind of been like indirectly one of my spiritual teachers. Everybody has spiritual teachers and just teachers in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to go do a silent meditation retreat in India. And I knew that then ashrams there, they do vipassanas or different silent meditation retreats. And I wanted to go and just sit in silence because I'd realized, like you pointed out earlier, I was escaping my escape.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't been actually taking time to sit and think about things. And ever since I read about, oh God, I don't remember who exactly, but I remember like Steve Jobs or some super famous, successful people. They had all gone to India around 33 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 34, and I was like, I always envisioned myself going to India, going on a soul-searching journey to connect with God and to see what was there, because a lot of those people came back and they changed the world. And I don't know if it's the madness of it or the poor that you see there or the third world just aspects of it that give you an appreciation of life, but I've always wanted to go to India, and I always knew I would go there and do a silent meditation retreat. And you know, I envisioned being silent for like a day or two, but as I went longer and longer on my trip, I knew it had to be longer than a day or two.
Yeah.
Then it was supposed to be a week. Then I was like, no, 10 days. Then it ended up being almost 12 days. And what it came down to is I basically had to get my team on board with letting me take that much time off, because I knew I was not going to have my phone. I was not going to have my internet. So I went there to pray. And I went there to be with myself. And I went there to actually process all of the things that I'd learned in the last year and sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
And not escape it and not be able to do anything to escape it. So my brother got me invited to an ashram, which is led by a guru. His name is Kailashwar Swami, and he follows the teachings of Shirdi Sai Baba, of Jesus Christ, of Muhammad. You know, we'll get into like more a little bit of the details of what this ashram, and I can't speak for them, but what I can say from the feeling that I got, and it's a feeling that I've always had about religion and stuff, and we'll get into those details too, is just they were open to all religions as long as they believe in one God. And I've always been of the same mind and faith in life. I actually, to be honest, before I went to India, I don't think I believed in God anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty depressed still. I just come back from Croatia. I've been partying for like a week and a half straight. There was no God there. There was no emotions. I was actually like really burnt out, and I was like feeling more lost than ever. I was feeling super ashamed because I just like felt like I went on this soul searching journey. I felt like I'd healed, and now I just spent a week in Croatia getting drunk and raging. Basically, I felt like I threw everything that I'd learned in the last year out the window.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, part of it is also just being easier on myself and realizing it's okay to do those things every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so I get to India, and I was reading my journal entry, and I think it's really good. And so I'm just going to share it because I think I did a really good job of just explaining what India feels like, and you can read it there too, okay? So now let's talk about the stark contrast and dichotomy that India has to offer. I find myself in the back of a bicycle cart driving down the roads of Old Delhi. My tour guide looks like a Westerner because he has albino hair and blue eyes, thanks to a recessive gene in his family. I'm glad to have him with me as we travel the back streets, even though no one treats him as a local. You look around and it's a bit of feast or terror. Sorry, I apologize. You look around and it is a feast or terror for the senses, depending on how you look at it. The smells of trash, spices, Indian men, tuk-tuks, pollution, Indian food, and the flowers being offered at the temples. It's not a smell I can quite describe, but more like a cornucopia of smells happening all in sequence and assaulting the senses. Some smells magical and some smells I would rather pass on. Then you look up and almost wish you didn't, because the homes simply range in their stability from one home to the next. Some homes, quotation marks, I wouldn't even consider more than a shack. Others are quite newish, and then others are hundreds of years old. About 20 to 30% of the homes look like they're the Leaning Tower of Pisa and are about to fall over, and yet they don't. On top of all of this madness, you have an electrical wire forest growing out of the buildings ready to cause a fire at any moment. The telephone poles look like trees, and the thousands of wires coming out like vines on the trees, and there are so many wires it looks like leaves waiting to spark a fire at any moment. The scene looks like one potential accident to another, and from the eyes of a personal injury attorney, it looks like one potential lawsuit to another. Then you have the drivers, who are all about 1 inch away from hitting each other, but they never do. They do not care for lanes, and they do not abide by any rules. The flow of bicycles, motorcycles, tuk-tuks, cars, pedestrians, animals, and everything in between floods the streets with a consistent and constant sound of horns. Some horns loud, others quite quiet, but some were as whimsical as an orchestra and would play a funny tune. The truth is, there's always a honk or a beep, and it's like a wave of sound in the streets. I honestly have never seen so much chaos and madness, and also a place that makes me so thankful for America. Simple things like roads, electricity, trash cleanup, and rules help to shape our society and also help to bring chaos to our world. In India, I have no idea what is about to happen next or who is going to approach me. In all this madness, I find myself staying at the nicest of hotels I've ever been to in my life. The rooms are immaculate and the service is impeccable. I am greeted at every corner and every employee wants to be a helping hand. Being blessed to be around them is an understatement. I honestly can't express the extreme dichotomy I've experienced thus far.
Wow. So you got like two sides of the coin here, huh?
Dude.
That's crazy.
India.
I would have been stressed out like the whole time, like just even just riding on that cart.
Dude, my leg is twitching because of like just thinking about like the stress of riding through the cities and just feeling the anxiety. Like, like here we have two roads on each side of the road. Okay?
Yeah.
Within those 2 lanes would be 8 lanes. I'm not even exaggerating.
Oh my
bikes,
gosh.
cars, tuk-tuks, vehicles. There's no rules.
What's a tuk-tuk?
A tuk-tuk is a little gas-powered like cart that it basically like looks like a gas tank, like gas to like light a fire in a stove, and a gas tank. They put it in the back, and it just sits in the trunk, and then you can fit 2 people in the back, and the driver sits in the front, and they drive it. It's like a little almost like motorcycle, but like cart, and it's super, dude. It's just like wild. One sec, I gotta just show you. I guess some of it is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
India.
Yeah. Can you describe some of those smells,
dude? The spices smelt more fragrant than any spice I've ever smelt in my entire life in America.
Mm-hmm.
The bad smells smelled like trash, cow manure. Indian men have a specific smell. What I will say, it's not even Indian men. I learned on my trip that depending on what country I was in and what I was eating, I smelt different. When I was in Italy, I smelt like carbs. I don't know, like I smelled like carbs. I just remember my sweat smelled like carbs. When I was in India, I smelled like masala. And I literally smelled like what I was eating days on end. And so I noticed where I was staying, I would change my body odor based on what I was eating regularly. And so where I was had a huge effect on my entire being. And so you'd smell like like all kinds of spices. You'd smell trash. You'd smell poop on the ground from the cows. And then you have cows walking in between all the cars because they're sacred animals there. They're holy, right? So no one touches or harms cows or eats cows. In my hotel was the only place that I saw a cow on the menu because a lot of Westerners stay there.
Yeah.
And so they provide it for them. But when I was in India, I didn't eat any cow the whole entire time I was there. I made it a point to not and to respect their culture. And I also felt very clean and not heavy from eating cow. But here's like where I was staying. Okay, so I'm staying in a place called the Leela Palace, which was absolutely gorgeous and
looks like a palace.
Amazing. Yeah, it literally looks like a palace, and it's just gorgeous, very nice. And by the way, this was the nicest hotel I've ever stayed at, and it was not the most expensive hotel I've ever stayed at. I was spending like $150, $200 a night, and this was the nicest hotel I've ever stayed at. And I've stayed at hotels that are like, you know, 500 to 1,000 a night before, and they were not as nice as this place. And like my room was super. The room wasn't the sexiest room I've ever been in, but for $150 a night, it was sexy as fuck. It had this nice, you know,
Look at that.
bathroom.
Was that like a screen on the mirror?
Super cool. Yeah, there was actually a TV in the mirror, which was cool. And then like just like pretty elegant and
Very elegant.
it was just nice. I mean, dude, especially after like all the trip that I had been on so far, where I was staying in like decent Airbnbs, but nothing too crazy and spectacular. And then, you know, you go outside and we went to New Delhi. Now I want you to just look at this.
Oh my gosh.
Do you see those wires?
This would give me like OCD. Like, this is crazy.
I can't make that shit up. This is how it looked. This is the streets.
What are those wires? This is just power?
This is how they get power. You just figure out how to splice it and you plug it into your home. Like,
Wow.
this is a fire hazard waiting to happen. Like, look at this. This is a video. Check this out. This is us riding like a bicycle through it all.
Oh man, I would be so nervous walking through this or riding a bike through this.
Dude, like if you touch it, you could get electrocuted. Like, these are all live wires.
Look at those ones that are like hanging down to like your head level.
Like, look at this.
Holy moly.
This is insanity. And then, like, you have guys like this dude walking around just carrying, like, all this stuff. And you're just like, what's happening here? And this guy's
Is he
like,
carrying that on his head?
dude, he's like 80 years old and he's carrying this on his head. Just
What
like,
is that?
I don't even know what's in those things. And then, like, here's
Magic
the spice
boxes.
market. You know, like, smelling these spices, I wish I could, dude, I wish I could put the smells through the camera.
Yeah.
I've never had more flavorful food than I've ever had in my entire life than in India. And I loved it. It was amazing. My stomach didn't love it most of the time. You know, there's that aspect of it. Our, food is not, our stomachs are just not used to eating that much like flavor.
Yeah.
And this is like all like, you know, like the spice market, and you hear like of all like the trade routes in India and China, they all went through India. China and stuff picked up their spices from India. All the nicest hotels, they get all of their spices from this crazy road. Like, look at this. Look at this road. It's just madness.
It's chaotic.
In India, like very
There's just a lot going on. Sorry, one second. I can go through this slower, but you can just see like there's just a lot going on. There's just all these people, like all these shops, and this is like the main road. And like people come here, like even the nicest hotels, they send people here to get the spices from this one area. And actually, this guy's super funny. This was one of my drivers dropping me off at the airport. You got to hear this. This is the rules to driving in India. Okay. This is Kranti. Kranti is giving me advice on the 5 things you need for driving in India. So what are they again?
Yeah, so if you want to drive in India, you want 5 very important things.
Yeah.
You know, the first one is a good horn.
Yeah.
Second is good brake.
Yeah.
Third is one cold water in your car. Like if you're in jam and you feel angry and back car gives lots of horn.
Yeah.
So no fighting. You use cold water and cool down.
Yep.
Fourth is lots of patience. And 5, and very, very important, sir, the good luck.
Yeah. 100%.
And you know, because if you want to drive in India, only one rule.
Yeah.
No rule.
No.
Remember that 5 thing and
Like-
also the rules.
Yeah.
So those 5 rolls, throw it out the window.
Appreciate it, Kranti.
I like the water. So you have cold water, so you cool down.
Yeah, like, dude, I was living the lap of luxury with this place. Like, so like that was a nice like BMW 5 Series. That's what, instead of getting like, I could have rented. Okay, if you want to go to India and do it a cheap way, my sister went to India and stayed there for months and did it very cheap. She's like, I didn't spend more than a couple $100 my whole trip. I, of course, was the opposite. I like went and I was like having a BMW 5 Series chauffeur, and I would have a chauffeur drive me around. But I wanted that because I don't know. I didn't feel India's very safe, but I just felt a lot safer with these guys because the Leela Palace is like where all the diplomats and politicians stay. And so us being in those cars, I noticed people would not come up to us, mess with us, and even the homeless people knew not to come and like beg from us and like ask for money and stuff. And so I liked being in that kind of scenario. And essentially the vehicles, it was like $100 for the day, but I didn't think that was horrible. And then they would drive me for 8 hours wherever I wanted to go.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so like then I had a tour guide. The tour guide for the day for 8-10 hours was $100-something. So I was like, and I just came from Italy where I was spending $300-400 for the day for the tour guide, and he was only with me for 4-6 hours.
Yeah.
So I was stoked. India was cool. So I'm staying in these hotels. I would get full. I treated myself in India. I'd like the Leela Palace. I was like, I'm gonna get the sickest massage package ever. It's like $200 for like a 6-hour experience. Get a body wrap. Get like the sauna. You go in there. You do the cold plunge, and then they like do like the massage for like a couple hours, and then they gave you a facial. I was treating myself correctly, and I really wish it was that reasonable here in the States. But dude, it was the right stuff, and I treated and pampered myself well. And so I'm going to all these super nice places. I'm staying in these super sick hotels, and like I went first to New Delhi, which is the capital, and then I went to Chennai. One sec, let me see here if I could just show you just a quick video of
Did you eat some spicy food?
Dude, I loved the Indian food.
Yeah.
It messed up my stomach for the first like 2 days I was there, but then I adjusted. The only other time I got really sick was like when I was in the ashram. They didn't serve meat at the ashram, so I didn't eat meat for like 7-8 days. And then I went on one day where I went on like a field trip outside of the ashram to a very special meditation spot, and we went to an Indian spot to eat, and it was like the real deal, authentic Indian, like hole in the wall. They didn't even have forks and knives to eat there.
Yeah.
They didn't. You have to eat with your hands.
Yep.
And it was one of the most delicious meals of my life. It ruined my life for like a day and a half after, but I will never forget the taste of that. Oh, it was butter chicken. I had biryani. I'm drooling. I'm literally drooling, like thinking about it right now. I'm also like hungry, but dude, it was so good. And I just remembered I'm gonna get sick when I eat this. I just knew it, like because you're just like they don't have napkins. You go wash your hands at the sink. That's it. Like, dude, it was very authentic Indian. It was so good. It was so good. Yeah. Okay, so this was like this was one of the cities. So I stayed at Leela Palace in 3 different cities. So Leela Palace is like the #1 brand in all of India.
Oh, it's like a chain.
It's a chain, but they're the shit. So it was super cool. And like this was like one of the places that I was flying my drone off my balcony in Chennai, and it was right on the beach on the water, which was super cool and beautiful, and like right above this like river, and we were like on the ocean. So like I was living in the lap of luxury the first couple days that I was there for sure.
Yeah.
Okay? And then okay, so there's that. And then, like, on this journey, I had my tour guides taking me to some cool places. I saw Mahatma Gandhi's grave, which was super rad. I also learned about Genghis Khan, and I learned about the history of India. I learned about the British India, the British India Company. What is it called? West India Company, and how they like basically took over, and they were running India for a long time, and they were just really good businessmen. I basically learned a lot about the history, but let's get to the stuff that I believe is an important part of this journey. And so going from there, I went to reconnect with God, and that was like a part of my journey. And my brother was telling me to go to these specific temples that are like considered power spots in India. Okay. So the Indian culture has the oldest language known to mankind, which is Sanskrit. Have you ever heard of Sanskrit?
Yes.
Okay. So being like one of the original languages, they communicate and they use sounds that I guess would be sounds that you would consider that would get you closer to God, or like just more original sounds. Like Om would be like an original sound, okay? And
I did not know that. That's very interesting.
so Om and like the Hindu people specifically like do different types of chants, okay? And the different types of chants that they do like are ways where they can connect to God, and the chants are like prayers. I shouldn't call them chants. They're prayers. And they're chants to us because we don't know the perfect translations of what they mean. And so these translations can get lost in time, because just like many languages, they are almost like poetic, and that certain words can have many meanings. And so being in these countries and going to these places, my brother was having me go to these places and, basically go and like pray. And like he gave me like some chants that are specific, supposed to be like direct channels to God. And, I'm not saying that I am particularly Hindu in any way, shape, or form, but what I do believe is no matter what language you're praying in, you're praying to the same God. That's how I feel.
Okay.
And so the prayers, my brother translated the meanings for me, and they're all basically, they all have different meanings, but I was, saying these prayers, and they were in Sanskrit, some of these, and so I was like saying them. And so we'll get into those a little bit later, but he had me go to like one temple, and like one temple was this temple, and this is like a giant temple. Whoa, that's loud. So this is like a giant temple, and there was 4 of these giant temples within this temple, and there's a bunch of monkeys and stuff flying around them. And so at one point throughout history too, the Indian people were the most powerful like nation in the world, and when their leader was the leader, he was like dominating most of the known world. He spent all of his wealth on building temples for God. And so within like the Hindu religion, there's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who are like the 3 main gods. But you can look at things in different ways, and I think people also take it like literally. Like I don't like they can be interpreted as gods, or they can be interpreted as angels. Just like we have Gabriel, we have Archangel Michael, right? And we have these archangels. Those could have been the archangels, and I think like all of these stories and things that get passed down, they must be based on something, whether these were real people or whether they were prophets, just like Jesus was, right? Like maybe Vishnu and Shiva and Brahma were just like they're Jesus or they're Muhammad, and they have their books which tell these stories. And I just think it's insane to say that one religion is right over another. Like, why would millions of people believe something that is completely 100% incorrect? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that all of religions are all correct, but I'm saying that they all have to be based on some truth and real people or real entities that existed. And otherwise, how would this stuff get passed down for generations? It didn't just come from nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I go to this temple, and like being at these temples, people have been praying at these temples for thousands of years, literally thousands of years. And one of the things about this temple is like there was this legend. This legend was that this girl was so in love with Shiva, the god Shiva, that she wanted to like marry him. And so he told her, okay, you need to make this clay pot. So she made this clay pot and protect it no matter what. And so Shiva flooded the town nearby, and the clay pot was going to get washed away, and she went and attached herself to the clay pot, and the clay pot, basically she almost died, and she proved her love to God, which is basically just a parable for saying prove your devotion to God and that you truly believe in God, right? And a lot of the stories that I believe in the Hindu religion is obviously parables, just like a lot of the parables in the Bible and other religions. And so I went to this temple, and in each temple there is a room. And these rooms have things called Shiva lingams. Shiva lingams are just like essentially objects that are representations of their god, or like praying to God, or a representation of a god, whether it's Shiva, Vishnu, or Brahma. And what they do is they wave like a fire in front of it, which is supposed to represent like God's fire or God's flame. And that's how they pray. You stare into the fire, and then what you do is you look on these Shiva lingams, and it's called darshan. Darshan means like divine sight. And when you like look upon other people, you're giving them darshan when they look at you, because you're giving them your energy and they're giving you your energy, right? So like right now we're exchanging energy just by us exchanging eyesight and looking at each other. And so these objects have been there for thousands of years, and they literally pray on them multiple times a day, and they're doing these prayers and these chants, and they're doing these processes. And these objects, like if I prayed on this phone every single day for the next 1,000 years, this thing would start to begin to gain energy. Now imagine millions of people coming and praying upon this phone. I know some people will probably listen to this and think that there's no such thing as energy, and that's not true. But like, let's talk about Christians. You go to church and you pray upon a cross with Jesus on it all day long, and you feel that energy. And you've ever been to the Vatican and places like that, you can feel it when you look at those holy objects. Let's talk about a mosque. You go to a mosque where you congregate, and there's a beautiful power object or something that represents Muhammad. I'm sure that people will tell you they feel the vibrations and they feel the energy coming off that object. And this goes for all religions. I'm sure that there is Buddhist monasteries where there's objects that the Buddha touched, or that, he worked with, and you can pray upon these. And so I went to this temple, and first of all, foreigners are not allowed in the main sanctum. You're only allowed to look from a distance, and you're only allowed to basically, see things from far away.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. I think it's because they don't want foreigners to come in and make fun of their religion and look at it like a tourist object, that it is something that they want you to have respect for. But, I went there and I was going out of respect, and, I was and I think God is in many, obviously God is everywhere, but just I respect that God can be seen through many different places. So I went there, and I wasn't allowed into this inner sanctum, and so I was outside, and then as we were, one second here. So there was like, oh no, these were all like beautiful drawings that are on the ground. I don't know why I don't have a video of the inside of the temple. But the inside of the temple is like this old, beautiful like structures and like beautiful like columns, and they're all like etched with different gods from the Hindu religion. And then you get to this inner sanctum, and of course I couldn't take any pictures of that, and so I couldn't go in there. And as I was leaving, on the outside they have something called prasad. Prasad just means like, we take communion. Prasad is like a form of communion. It's blessed food that they're eating in like, respect and reverence to their gods. And I was outside, and then they asked me like, do you want to make a donation? He was talking to one lady. One of the Brahmins was a Brahmin, is a priest. He goes, do you want to make a donation to the temple? And he goes, and she goes, she donates a couple hundred rupees, which is like nothing. Like it's like a couple dollars. And then he asked, do you want to make a donation? And I pulled out a bigger bill, and he's like, and I was going to give him a couple hundred, and he's like, no more. And I'm like, okay. And I gave him 2,000 rupees. 2,000 rupees is only like $20. To the Indian people, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he goes, would you be willing to donate more? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, great. Come here. He takes me to the front of the line, and I had this very surreal experience where he literally just starts handing me the food, and he says, you're going to give it to all the people. And so I started feeding all of the people that were outside of this temple. And next thing I know, there's like, I end up feeding a couple hundred people. And
Wow.
like, in like, it just like it basically started out, there was only like 10-20 people in line because they had to buy the prasad, and then I started feeding them, and then next thing I know, there's like 300 people in line. And then he looks at me and he's like, do you want to keep feeding them? And I'm like, yeah, I'll feed them all. And I fed all of them, and at the end of it all, it was like less than $100, and I fed all these people. And I sat there and I gave it to them all, and it was this very like unique experience. And
yeah. How was it? Like, I mean, like, what did you feel when you were just grabbing the food and giving it to them?
I was saying a personal prayer blessing, which I just said, God, please bless this food and please bless this person. I just kept repeating that over and over again, and just basically like praying on it and giving it to them. And then each person was looking at me very strange. They're like, who is this weird Westerner wearing cowboy holsters?
Good thing you didn't have your hat on, huh?
Good thing I didn't have my hat on. Yeah, I couldn't wear it in the temple. And basically, they're looking at me very strange. And I'm just like, they're making weird faces. And it was a strange thing, too. Only one person out of the couple hundred said thank you. Everybody else just like took it and like gave it. My brother told me something about like the Indian people don't usually say thank you. I don't know how to explain it. I just never really heard a lot of thank yous when I was there, unless like I was giving them tips. But like they were looking at me very strangely, like, who is this person doing this? And then like I gave it to a couple hundred people, and then dude, it ended up costing less than $100. And then what ended up happening is one of the Brahmins comes up to me and he goes, okay, you come with me. And he takes me back to the inner sanctum. And he's all like, can you give me tip as an offering to the inner sanctum? I'm like, yeah. So I gave him another like 2,000 rupees, and they gave that as an offering to the Brahmin. And I'm sitting there, and they take me, there's a line of like a couple thousand people trying to get to this inner sanctum, and they take me past it, and he goes, you sit here. And they sat me in front of the line inside the inner sanctum. And I sat there and I just prayed. And what I will say is that as I was looking upon this object, I felt this very strong, powerful presence or power. And I don't know what it was. But what I will say is it was something, because I felt it physically upon my body. And of course, all these Indian people are looking at me like, who is this person and why are they letting him all the way in there?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? So I'm sitting in this inner sanctum, and they're doing a prayer where they're waving the fire in front of it, which is like the sacred fire. And I'm looking into it, and this object, dude, I just emanated a type of powerful energy, and I could feel it vibrating through my body because I felt sick to my stomach almost, because it was like so powerful. This is like this.
That's
like,
crazy.
Temple, yeah, this specific temple is like considered one of the most holy temples in all of India. And so I went in there, and they never let any foreigners in, and they let me into the inner sanctum. And Yeah, and like I know a lot of people see like people wiping the ash on their forehead. The wiping of the ash on your forehead is to protect your third eye and to
Mm-hmm.
protect you from like other people and their energies, and that's why they put it on their forehead. And I apologize if I'm not perfect about those descriptions. That's my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in this inner sanctum, and I had this very unique spiritual experience. And dude, I was like, I literally could feel like the energy from this room vibrating because it was a dark room, and in the back, just like very in the back is this sacred object that they've been praying on for thousands of years.
What does it look like?
All of them look pretty much the same, but it looks like a
Mm-hmm.
cone that's like rounded on the top, and that's what it looks like. And it's just an object that they pray upon. And I think within that object was the clay pot that was on that legend that I showed you, and I think that's what was in
Oh.
there. But most of the time, it's just actually a stone that represents the Shiva lingam, and it's made out of different materials. I think it's actually a very similar one sometimes, but yeah, and like
Did you feel like the energy when you walked into the room or when you sat down and looked at it?
when I sat down and looked at it, I could feel this energy because it's like I was literally just looking at it and I could feel it, dude. And it was like vibrating through my body. And like, like all these people are there for a reason. They're not all praying to nothing, and they're all sending
Mm-hmm.
their prayers at this object.
Are these all like the locals there that are waiting in this long line?
Yeah, so all the people that were outside were just the locals,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all trying to go. Well, and some of them weren't locals. I actually drove 2.5 hours to go to this temple. My brother told me to go there, so it
Yeah.
was far outside of the city that I was at, and so I went into this temple, dude, and like, yeah, dude, it was, like,
That's crazy. I wonder what that felt like.
yeah,
Like, how would you explain it like a real life feeling? Like, have you ever felt that before?
I felt like I had butterflies and nauseous at the same time. I felt warm, and I felt a physical weight on my body when there was nothing physically putting pressure on me. Because I felt it in some holy places in Jerusalem before. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've been to like the Wailing Wall, which feels very heavy, which is like the Wailing Wall for Jewish people. And then I've also been inside of Dome of the Rock, which is the second most spiritual place for the Muslim people, which is where Muhammad supposedly, I believe, ascended
Mm-hmm.
to heaven. And I felt those presences in those locations, and also in the Holy Sepulchre when I went to the tomb of Jesus Christ, which is also in Jerusalem. And all the feelings in those places were very similar. And it was a very powerful feeling. And so I left there that day feeling like a little bit more connected to like God in some way, and just understanding that there's something about prayer and there's something about like connecting to that level. So then I go from there, which is Chennai, to Bangalore. And in Bangalore, my brother has me meet up with this guru who's somebody that he's been close with. And it was, I met with this gentleman. He looked like a cartoon character, like somebody that you would envision looks like a spiritual guru.
How does your brother just meet all these people?
My brother ran tours in India with this ashram, and my brother believes in all religions, and
Mm-hmm.
he got called to go to this ashram, just somehow through like a series of events in his life in a spiritual way. And so he ended up there, and he felt a spiritual connection with Kaleshwar Swami and Shirdi Sai Baba. And so he was like running tours for people that were going to do these processes in India. And so he was in India. He's been there many times. And so he had somebody who was like one of his spiritual gurus is this guy named
Oh my
there we
gosh,
go,
look at these guys.
Baba Mooney. And so you can see here in the middle, that's Baba Mooney, and he literally looks like what you'd imagine for a guru in India.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. And then this is Hunter. This is like one of his devotees, and I'm wearing like the traditional robe to be
That
respectful.
doesn't
of
even
these
look like
temples.
you, man.
No, well, I like cut my hair super short because I wanted it was like as an offering to like like out of respect for the ashram that I was going. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like they go there, and a lot of guys they shave their heads.
Who's the guy next to you? I love his hair.
This guy was just one of the Brahmins in one of the places, and like I met up with these guys, and like Baba Mooney and Hunter were the other gentlemen. They took me to these temples, and like look at these temples, like absolutely gorgeous, and like very special places. And here's Baba and Hunter sitting like on this like mantle, and they're very like basically he prays. He's like a priest, and like for the Hindu culture, and like they took me to these very special places, and they were basically taking me there, and I would give little offerings of like $10-$20, and then they would pray for me. They would give me blessings, and I felt like I was having this weird out of body experience, right? I've been raised I've been raised Christian Catholic my entire life. Went to private Catholic school. Okay. Now I'm in India with a guru and a guy that looks like one of their gods with his hair coming out of his place, but he's an American. And they're teaching me about the Hindu culture, their religion. And I'm going into these temples that are like straight out of like an anime cartoon with they basically like in each temple they have these giant statues that represent their gods, and you give darshan by looking at these statues. And I'm sitting there looking at these statues, and like one of the places they took me, this statue supposedly is like a solid rock. It has grown several inches every year, like just on its own.
What?
And yeah, and like I'm hearing these stories, and of course to me it's like far-fetched, and I'm just like, I don't understand.
That's crazy.
It's just crazy. Yeah. And
the rock's growing.
But dude, supernatural things happen on this planet, right? It's just considered a miracle. And so I'm sitting there and, I'm sitting there looking at this rock, and same thing. I felt this feeling that I felt when I was in this temple, just staring at this, statue that had supposedly been growing for years. And I'm getting these prayers and blessings. And, no matter what religion you're in, if somebody's praying for you, they're giving you blessings, and that's real. And so I was going from temple to temple to temple and receiving blessings and getting prasad and like basically like giving donations to these people. And like, dude, it wasn't a lot of money for me, and I almost like felt bad that I wasn't giving more money, and like they're praying for me. And then I'm going with them, and they're teaching me like just different like things about the Hindu culture and their prayers and why they're praying this way. And like the Hindu culture are a very devoted culture, and they're very connected to God, and like they are very humble people. And I've never felt more like welcomed in the sense of like people trying to go above and beyond to treat me well, to serve me properly, and to go above and beyond for the smallest amount of money. And they, even if I didn't give them any money, they were the kindest service I've ever received in any country I've ever been to. And if anybody wants to run a proper hospitality place, if you want to run a successful business and you want to see what proper service is, go to India, because they are the kindest, most humble people, and they will go above and beyond every time to make sure you have everything you need. I remember when I walked into the Leela Palace, I couldn't even like carry my own bags. They refused to let me like carry my own things, and like I offended them if I didn't let them help me with everything. And they were like, when I walked in, I had to sit down. They had multiple people attend me. They bring me welcome drinks. They ask, what do I want? Do I need a snack? Like I just never felt so like properly served, and it was really, really nice. And so did you know a lot about like the Hindu religion before you went there? Nothing.
So this was all new to you.
I was literally like a lost child, what felt like I was watching myself in an anime movie. I just didn't know where the hell I was, what I was doing, where I was. My brother's sending me to this ashram. I don't know anything about this religion. And
you're along for the ride.
Yeah, I'm along for the ride. I'm calling him every night, and I'm like, hey, explain this. Who's Brahma? Who's Vishnu? Who's Ganesh? Who are these people? What is this? And like, I'm not even like, like once again, I have a admiration and respect for all religions, but dude, just wanting to understand where I was in the culture I was in, so I didn't offend anyone, because I respect them and what their beliefs are. And also I'm going into their places of worship that are thousands of years old. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just want to understand where I am and what's going on. And
what's like the most interesting part about the religion that you find like fascinating, or that stuck out to you the most?
I mean, like, dude, they just have like these mythical creatures. Like one guy's name is Hanuman, and Hanuman was a monkey god. And Hanuman, his entire life, he devoted to his master and being of service. And literally he would help like his master. And so like in the parable, it's like people made fun of him because he would literally served his master and would do whatever he wanted. But what they ended up saying later was like God blessed him because it's called seva, which is like a form of service where you're serving others. The greatest thing you can do on the planet. And he ended up becoming a spiritual master because he dedicated his life to others and to serving his master who served other people. And like I just felt like I was reading these fairy tale fiction novels and hearing these stories, and like the Baba Mooney guy was telling me these legends. I mean, they're not legends, they're it's like Moses to them would be like Hanuman, and like Brahma and Vishnu would be like their Sarah and Abraham, the original tribes. That's their stories. And for me, it was making this correlation that even though it sounded far-fetched to me, I'm sure when they hear about Jesus turning water into wine, they probably feel the same exact way about our stories. And it's just having this respect for this culture. And I had, when I first got there also, I've never appreciated America more in my entire life. Just having internet that works, having bathrooms that work, water that I can drink from the sink and not use the restroom every 14 seconds because of it. Like, I love America and respect it in a way that I can't even begin to explain to you after going to India. And at the same time, I never felt more alive and excited than when I was in India in the madness.
Yeah.
And just feeling the people and seeing the people and just like, oh my God, dude, it was so exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. Like, am I going to die? Am I going to get robbed?
Am I gonna
am
die?
I going to like kill this cow that's walking across the street? Like, you know, like, and then like, if you're a foreigner, everybody walks up to you and wants to take selfies with you because they all think you're a famous person. So I have all these selfies with all these random people from all over the world, especially with my cowboy hat. Like, and
Yeah.
I'm getting out of the Leela Palace, like BMW car. Like, they all thought I was a celebrity. And even my tour guide, he told me he did a tour with Richard Gere, with the girl Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. He's just met all these famous people, and like, you know, they all go there to like go connect with God and like see this madness. And dude, I literally just was having an out of body experience because I'm like in these temples, basically praying to their gods, not understanding what I'm praying to, trying to understand it all, and like also just understanding that prayer is really just you connecting with God. And whether, you know, just like accepting that even though it was not something I understood, but just knew that I was there to reconnect with myself, because I think God is within all of us. And by reconnecting with myself and praying, I was just taking attempts and taking steps towards reconnecting with myself and to God. I know I just kind of spoke in a circle there, but that made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so they basically were like my partners in crime as I was transitioning to this ashram. And so then I go to this ashram, which was a place called Penukonda. And I knew nothing about this ashram when I got there. I didn't know where I was going, really, what I was doing. My brother's like, you're just going here. I have a driver from the ashram coming to get you. He's going to take you to this place, and you're going to go. And I go to this little obscure town in the middle of nowhere. And this was very, very third world compared to, like, the other places I've been to. And the places I'd been to were pretty third world already.
Yeah.
And I go to this ashram. This ashram is this nice white ashram. It's this beautiful white building. And there's giant walls above it. I'm like, why are there giant walls around an ashram? I thought religion's supposed to be about like being all inclusive and all this stuff. And I guess like this ashram, what I end up coming to find out is like it's about this gentleman named Kaleshwar Swami. And Kaleshwar Swami was a guru throughout his life, and he could do real life miracles. And he could like transmute like flowers into like gems. He could walk on water. And like, I know all this stuff sounds crazy, and it sounded really crazy to me, and it almost sounds completely far-fetched, but he essentially was like somebody that would be like considered a Jesus or like a Muhammad. And like what I learned there, and I'm still trying to like do more research on, is that like people like Jesus and a lot of the greatest spiritual teachers, they did a lot of these chants, and they did a lot of these processes and a lot of these prayers that the Hindu people already knew about. And so Jesus supposedly went to India. There was like a time in his life where he disappeared. Like, people didn't know where Jesus went. He went to the Himalayas, supposedly. He went to India, and he trained in India. And also, supposedly, Mary, his mother, did processes that allowed him to be like a supernatural like person. And she did processes that she also learned from Indian culture. And so the Indian people, because of their connection through Sanskrit and being very devoted people, and they were all about prayer for thousands of years, they're very much connected to God, and they're very much connected to these processes. And so Kaleshwar Swami, he was somebody who taught people the processes that all these spiritual masters did. And so the processes, a lot of them deal with like the elements. And so we're all made up of 5 elements. There's earth, fire,
Water.
wind, water, earth, and air. Okay. And no, not earth, wind and air. Yeah. Water, wind, and air. And so these elements were all made up out of it. And so by doing certain processes, you can gain control over those elements within your body and those things around you. And so he was teaching things that were called like, have you ever heard of like palm leaf manuscripts? Like, that's how like the Bible was passed down. Have you heard of them before?
Yes.
And so like some processes are passed down for thousands of years. And so he was sharing this knowledge openly, and he was basically helping people train to become spiritual masters. And it's interesting because what I like went there, and like the thing that I've always felt about religion, and this is how I feel about religion. I don't think religion should be called religion. I think it should be called religion. What set of rules do you follow to get to God or to your gods, whatever it may be? And so I feel that religion a lot of time is trying to keep people down and not become spiritual masters. They just want you to be a spiritual follower. They just want you to follow the rules you're given, follow the processes you're told. If you stray from it, you're going to hell, and donate to us, and you have to do things this way or else you're going to hell. And I just thought that was ridiculous. Because I think God is trying to welcome all of us in and it's supposed to, like, religion should be all inclusive to everyone is how I feel about it. And just because, let's say, somebody in like Namibia that's never heard of Christianity and he doesn't believe Jesus is the Son of God, I don't think he's going to go burn in hell for all eternity.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. And I don't, and don't get me wrong, I was raised Christian. I'm not saying anything negative about Christianity. I think Christianity is beautiful. And I think Jesus was an amazing, amazing spiritual healer. And I think he did all the miracles that he did. And I think he was the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest prophet or person that's like come to earth and done that. But also something I believe is I think Jesus spoke in parables throughout his life. I don't think Jesus ever said, I am the Son of God, meaning he was God incarnate on the planet. He also said we are all children of God. I think he believed, and I can't speak for Jesus. My interpretation is that he believed we were all children of God and that he was also saying he was a child of God. And so I just thought that it's so intense to say if you don't believe that he's the Son of God or that he is God, that you're going to go to hell and burn away for all eternity. And, I might piss off a lot of people from what I'm saying right now. But what I believe is that I think all religions, as long as they believe in one God, and it took me a long time to get to the belief, like on this trip, to get to this conclusion that I did believe in one God. And I've always believed in one God. But as long as you believe in one God, what does it matter how you're getting there? It's like we're all taking different freeways to get to Los Angeles, whether I take the 5 or you take the 405 or you're taking the 55 to the 605. We're all going to the same destination.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to just be like, okay, this is kind of what I believe. And because I believe that there are teachings in the Muslim faith because they're very devoted,
Isn't it like all religions kind of similar in a way? They have like kind of similar stories, right?
I mean, from my limited knowledge, and I'm not an expert in any way, but I think that many of them do, right? But many of them have a mother figure, which is like Mother Divine, whether it's Mother Divine in the Hindu culture, Mahakali. In Christianity, it's Mary, right? We all have this mother figure, right? And then we all have God, which is like the father figure, right? And then all of us, many of the religions have a prophet that comes and is guiding you to these places, right? Or then there's like Buddhism, which I really love. Buddhism is just like all about, becoming enlightened within yourself and finding that calm and that sense of yourself. And like, what's wrong with that? And they believe in one God. And everybody just has these different processes of getting to God. And so Swami and Shirdi Sai Baba and like this ashram that I went to, they all believe that all religions are good. And I can't speak for them either. My interpretation of what I read, which was a book by Kalashwar Swami, is that he believed all religions were good as long as they believe in one God. And so he was sharing the processes that were passed down, and these processes essentially help you to become an enlightened master. And so he was teaching people to become enlightened masters instead of just being followers. And so a lot of other people were very angry at him for sharing these processes, especially Hindu people. And supposedly throughout history, they threw like bombs and like grenades and literally tried to like kill people that were part of this ashram. And so that's why it had these huge walls around it to like protect it from the outside world. And so I went there and, I basically spent some time there and went there for my 10-day silent meditation retreat. And the first day I get there, I meet a bunch of people and, I'm walking around the ashram, getting a feel for it. And the feeling that I had in that inner sanctum of that temple, I had in this whole place. Supposedly, I guess Penukonda is one of the biggest power spots for like religion and spirituality in the world. Supposedly Jesus went there at one point, Buddha went there at one point. A lot of very, very powerful spiritual people were called to India and went to this place at one point. And Shirdi Sai Baba was there at one point. He's another very famous like Muslim teacher and Hindu teacher. And I go to this place and I could just feel the energy is very different about this place. And I'm in this ashram, and while I'm in there, the purpose of being there is to be silent. And
which is like crazy because you're never silent.
Literally took the words out of my mouth. Say, I've never shut up longer than an hour in my entire life.
I don't even know if that. Maybe like in front of me, maybe like 3 minutes.
I'm talking about by myself.
Oh yeah.
I talk to myself
Oh
all
my
the time.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm like that crazy person alone at home, and I'll be like sitting there thinking about something like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right, dude. And I'll say that to myself just out loud. And it's like, it's just like, I don't know. What I've learned is that I was always talking and I was making sounds and I was always making noise because I was trying to cover up the thoughts that were going in my head. And a quote after going through everything is that in the silence are the beautiful sounds of your soul. And I never really took the time to listen to my soul before. And I get there, and where I was staying was the complete opposite of where I just come from, Leela Palace, okay? And Leela Palace is this beautiful place. The place I stayed at, it was very humble. I had a mattress on the floor with a couple pillows that they gave me, and no blanket. I had to go buy a blanket, and just a little table and a chair, and then a shower that had no warm water, was leaking everywhere, and then like a toilet that was leaking everywhere. And there was no air conditioning was the first thing I noticed when I got there because it was hot. And I had a fan, and I almost wanted to leave when I saw there was no air conditioning. That's how prissy I am. I was like, there's no air conditioning, I'm going home.
You're too soft, Joe.
I'm too soft. Yeah.
Was it like humid there,
It
or
was humid and hot. I was
Yeah.
sweating all the time. I was just constantly sweating. Just basically, I think I lost a bunch of weight just sweating all the time.
Yeah.
But it's hot, and there's mosquitoes everywhere, and yeah. And so, I start this retreat, and I like basically agree that I'd start the silence, okay? And yeah, man, I just like I noticed I kept wanting to like go to my phone immediately, and I had agreed with myself I was going to turn off my phone. And so I didn't have phone, I didn't have internet, and so that was like the first thing, paying attention to the fact that I was trying to escape my thoughts hardcore, okay? And my brother gave me a process to do, which was like charging the inner element of fire, and it was a prayer called the Mahakali Prayer, and I had to say this prayer 10,008 times.
Wow.
So let me tell you the prayer.
But you have to say it like in your head because you can't talk, right?
Yeah. So the prayer was Om Hrim Hasraim Hrim Om Dim Dim Klim Klim Sam Sam Mahagni Swarupa Niyana Namaha Am Kulam Dom Jam Kanakaragamba Am Kulam Dom Jam Ham Kanakaragamba Durgi Devi Prasanam Am Om Yamataraja Banasalagam Mama 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 Atma 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 Raksha Raksha Rakshamam. One.
Whoa.
One.
How did you even just learn that? Like, did you have that like written out?
I wrote it out, and then I just read it like a couple thousand times, and then after a couple thousand times, I then started to like memorize it a little bit more and more and more, and then I started to like just like be able to think it. And this took multiple days. As soon as like the first day, I like had to read it. I didn't remember it. I had to read it hundreds and thousands of times.
Oh yeah.
And then the second day, it started becoming a little bit more natural. Third day, started getting a little bit of a flow with it, and then by the fourth day I knew it pretty well, and then it was just like refining it. And I wasn't talking to anybody, and I can't say that I was silent the whole time. I definitely did not stay silent the whole entire time. I had to communicate with the staff. So like the first night, I remember I got there, and I remember just like sitting in my room, and it was the first time I think I'd sat still since I'd like started going on this journey. Without distractions at all, no one around and no one to talk to. And I just remember sitting in my room and just feeling this flood of emotion, and like all of the emotions from the last like couple months just like started waving in. And I just sat there, dude, and I just sobbed like a little kid for the first time in like a really long time, and just being like overwhelmed, like being like proud of myself for being on this journey, being like, dude, like you just went on the craziest experience of your life. You just traveled around the world by yourself. Like, I'm so proud of you, but at the same time, like feeling so tired, so exhausted, and like also like just like feeling all the emotions that I just felt over the last like 4 months at that point. And just like sitting there and just like literally just like letting it out and just crying for like a couple hours and just kind of like letting it all go, dude. And like it was really, really, really powerful to like just do that. And
This was on like the fourth day, you said?
that was the first night.
The first night. Oh my
First
gosh.
night, dude. And like I'd only said it like 100 times at that point, and like I just kept track on a notepad, and like I have a mala, and so this is like my power object, and so like doing this one time all the way around is 108 times, right? So a mala has 108 beads, and so I would keep track by like doing malas or just counting them, however many I did, and just keeping track as I go through it. And so the Mahakali prayer specifically is about like cutting karmic connections and like attachments and different stuff. And the prayer is like asking God to come and envelop you and to give you strength. And so like I know what I just said, it like sounds like I had my brother explain what the prayer meant. And I'm just gonna read it so that you can understand, because
Okay.
I think that like you need to understand what it means. So basically the prayer is like, "O you whose body is everything in this creation, be washed, wash me, wash my soul and take me to the seat of God. O you whose body is all the elements, come into me and envelop me and purify my mental and emotional self and the ability to handle darkness." And then the next part basically asks Mother Divine, which is like, Mother Mary, or, basically to come in and cut all illusions and to allow me to see past the illusions that normal life is giving me. And then the end is basically saying, I'm calling out to my mother, which is like Mother Earth, basically saying, "Great soul, which makes all souls great and returns them, please help protect me from all of the illusions and to keep me safe." And so I'm basically saying that prayer over and over again. And what happens is at some point you stop thinking about what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just meditating. And what it was is I'm saying a prayer while meditating. And at some point, I know I'm saying the prayer in my head, but I'm not thinking it anymore. And what happened is, for the first time in my fucking life, I sat down and I shut the fuck up and I just started listening to my thoughts. And there were things coming up from when I was like in third grade, things coming up
wow.
from when I was a child, and things that I had just not sat and processed because I was too busy talking,
Yeah.
just like I'm doing now. But like, dude, my brother had me do another practice, which this is really the most powerful thing he had me do. He had me write the list of all the people I've ever slept with,
Mm-hmm.
and then he had me think on all the girls that I'd hurt and all the girls that had hurt me. And then he goes, "Okay, are you done with that list?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Now I want you to write the list of every person you've ever hurt and every person that's ever hurt you."
Mm-hmm.
And it took me like several weeks to write this list. By the time I wrote it, it was 8 pages, front and back, which
Oh
was
my
70
gosh.
lines. At first, when you're writing the list, all these names and people just come back quickly and it's easy.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you wrote everybody. I had written everybody that I had been like, okay, that's everybody that I know that I had hurt. And then what would happen is I'll be like, okay, as I was thinking about somebody that hurt me or I hurt, I would then think it would lead me to another story or an event that I hadn't processed. And this process sucked, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm basically reliving all the shitty parts of my life. And I'm sitting there and like, the biggest thing, man, was just like I was feeling physically ill. I was like sweating profusely. I was getting headaches and migraines. I would be feeling this emotion that I had been feeling that I had not let go of since I was a kid, and basically like reliving these moments. And at first I was like super sad, emotional, frustrated, and like just like in shock at like how I was still being affected by these moments and these things that had happened in my past. And letting go of them was very difficult. And like what ended up happening is, as I was going through this process more and more, and I would sit there at lunch, and didn't matter what I was doing, I was just always trying to think on people that I'd hurt or that had hurt me. I started to feel really sympathetic for those people that hurt me, and also a lot of sympathy for me, because I was just like understanding that a lot of those people were hurt people that were basically so badly hurt that they had to hurt me, or that I was this hurt little kid and I was taking my anger and frustrations out on these people. And even like in recent months where I'd hurt people, understanding that I was just in this place of understanding, and that I felt sorrow and I felt sadness for those individuals. And when I say individuals, I'm talking about myself too, because that I was that individual at that point in time, and just really feeling sad for them because they were just hurt people hurting other hurt people.
Wow.
And so it turned from like the emotions of whatever I felt during that incident, And then it turned into me just feeling sorrowful and sad and like wanting to help those people and really feeling and processing through all of that.
So you had to make that entire list. It was 8 pages long.
It's 8 days
Jeez
long. And
Louise.
yeah, I worked on that throughout the week. And yeah, man, I mean, like, it was a very emotional week. And like, even like day 2, I broke my silence because day 2, I'm laying in my bed and I felt myself get bit by something. And I'm just like, what the heck is that? And then I get bit again, and I start lifting up. I lift up the blankets, and I look and start looking on the mattress, and there's a bunch of bugs. And
Oh
I
my
like freaked
gosh.
out. I turned on my phone. I started Googling it, bed bugs. And so I'm like sitting there. It's like 2
No
in the
way.
morning. I'm having like an emotional freak out breakdown, and I'm just like, oh my god, these pillows, these blankets, everything. I like rip off all my clothes. I like throw them in the trash and like throw the mattress outside of the front door. And this isn't a hotel like the Leela Palace where I can go, hey, I need a new mattress right now. And so I'm sitting there laying on the ground. I remember specifically, like, I'm going home tomorrow. That's it. Can't do this. I cannot stay here for 10 days. It's hot. I'm sweating. It's like I just can't. And it's like thunderstorms, like raining, like crazy
Oh
weather,
my
like
gosh.
madness.
Jeez.
And mosquitoes are like hurt, like biting me every 2 seconds. Like I'm just like, I can't do this. There's no way. And I remember just sitting there laying on the ground, no pillow, nothing, and just on the solid tile floor, just crying. And I'm just like, I literally, and it was like me surrendering to God.
I would have been gone. I'd have been like, peace.
Dude, the next day I like had them go buy me a new mattress. They bring me a mattress, they brought me a new thing, they put it in there, and like I had to communicate with them, and so I broke my silence during that. But the rest of the time I was pretty silent. And I'm going to these prayer sessions, which is called like Arati, and like I said, I'm raised Christian Catholic. I'm like watching them doing their prayers and their devotions. They're singing these songs that are in Hindu, and they have a book that translates. And I'm like participating, but like not understanding a lot of it. And dude, I was just like, I literally felt like I was just like watching myself go through this experience. But as I'm doing this meditation, so I've never meditated for longer than maybe an hour total in my entire life before I got there. And now I'm sitting here meditating 12 hours a day.
Jeez.
And when I tell you, I was joking before I went on the trip with Aspen. I was joking, and she's like, oh my God, when she heard what I was going to do, she's like, maybe you'll get through like 4th grade, like as a joke when you're thinking about stuff. Dude, I literally processed, and I didn't completely process, but for my full extent, I processed my entire life, because it got to a point with the list where I had thought of everyone and everything. And then I went, okay, it was like day 6 or 7. And I was like, I'm just going to start from my first memory. And I literally thought back to like the first time, like I remember I pissed off my aunt and my grandma. And I literally remember getting like spanked by my aunt and my grandma and like being like, I pissed them off. I added them to the list. And then I'll be like, okay, 2nd grade or 3rd grade. And like, honestly, like being in shock that like I'm still hurt from stuff that happened in 2nd and 3rd grade, and that was having us like a actual physiological effect on my body at 34 years old.
Jeez.
And I went year by year.
I can't even remember that far back.
What happens is as you start, it's like a thread. You start pulling the threads. And as you're pulling the threads on one memory, one leads to another. Because one trauma will remind you of why you act this way and why you do those things. And I'm going through it, pulling the threads. And I'm getting back to like these moments. And dude, at some point, I literally just sat there and I remembered saying to myself, I've thought of all the things. I can't think of anybody else I've hurt or anybody else that's hurt me. And it was just like this super powerful moment. And it was really, really, really powerful. And then, yeah, that was like one aspect of it. And
how long did it take you to like do it all, like that
to
list?
think of that list, like the whole thing, I probably finished like the day before I like the 10 or 12 days that I was there. And like, I literally thought of like all the things that all the people that I'd hurt and all the people that hurt me. And I'd gone through it all and thought of it. And, even like being there, like being in the silence, man, like, the Indian people, like I was writing on my phone when I needed to communicate with people, but like they couldn't read English. So like I'd have to communicate with them. That's when I like broke my silence. And they were just such kind individuals. And I remember talking to one of the people there. She knew my brother, and she came up to me and was just talking to me. I really appreciated her because her talking to me made me feel normal, even though I wasn't talking. And she brought up this point that she just felt this relief of not having to talk. And I didn't understand what that meant because I love talking. And she like explained it. She's like, I just didn't have to think or say anything anymore. It was a huge relief. She stayed silent for a month.
Whoa.
And so when I was sitting there, I was like listening to her, and she was so right. By day 3, it was a relief because I've spent my entire life always like preparing speeches and always having to think of what I'm going to say and like always being worrying about what other people think of me. And it got to the point where I was like, I got to day 3 and I was like, holy shnikes. I am more energized and more relaxed and stress-free than I think I've been my entire life. Because I have never just not had to think about things, or I feel that I've never had to not be thinking about things, worrying about what other people want me to say, and just sitting there and like not always just be worrying about what I'm going to say next. And so I felt this huge just weight off my shoulders. And without work and without all the other obligations, I took a nap every damn day. I took a nap. And it felt so good. And I was just like listening to my body for the first time in my life without like, oh, I got to eat because it's time to eat, or I got to go do this, so I got to eat in between that, or I got to plan my day. It was like, am I hungry right now? Okay, I'll go down to the cantina and I'll eat. Oh, am I not hungry right now? Okay, I won't eat. I even did 2 24-hour fasts when I was there, where I didn't eat anything for 24 hours, and I wasn't hungry.
Oh, wow.
I was just listening.
Were you just like
to my
drinking
body.
water?
Just drinking water. Dude, like it's amazing when you actually listen to your body, what it tells you.
That's crazy. Were you planning the fast, or you just didn't?
I wanted to try it once. I knew I wanted to try it one day before I got there, but then it just became easy. Like, we overeat all the time here because I think we're trying to eat our emotions or eat our
Agree.
feelings. And like, it's just like, dude, I like do I feel like I want to take a nap right now? Okay, I'm going to go take a nap right now. And sometimes I would sleep. It wouldn't be a nap. It'd be a 6-hour sleep. And then I wake up at 2 a.m. and start meditating. But it was just like, am I tired? Am I not? Do I want to go work out or do I not? And then I would go run and like work out. And like, dude, there's like, I was listening to myself. And if you listen, your body will tell you what you need. And if you listen, your mind will tell you what you need. And if you listen, your heart will tell you what you need. And so I read a couple books while I was there, and I read this one by Kalashwar Swami, and he was talking about doing the processes there. And he's like, hey, don't do these processes if you don't believe in God. He's like, there's no point. He's like, go live your life, go be happy, and just, you'll be okay. But if you're trying to do these spiritual processes where you're trying to connect with God and connect with the elements, you have to believe in God. And he ended this whole like thing basically by saying, God is faith and faith is God. And at that moment, something in my brain just clicked. And I just realized the whole reason that I went on this trip was because I was listening to my intuition. I've been ignoring my intuition my entire life. And for the first time in my life, I was listening to my heart and I was listening to myself and I was going on this journey. And like, you know, like my belief in like what God was and like what is God is like, just to kind of get like not religious for a second, but like I believe that we all came from something, right? At the end of the day, if we all originated from something, what is God? Is it an energy? Is it a sound? Is it the Big Bang Theory? But something originated everything. Is it this floating entity that has a beard that looks like God? Is it a woman because it birthed all the universe? I just have always believed that there's something that created everything, whether it was a sound or an energy. And so we're all praying to the sound or energy. And then it just clicked in my head, well, God is faith and faith is God. Without the faith, you can't have it. And so I realized this whole journey that I've been on was me following my intuition, and that was me just listening to God because I was having faith that when I felt the need to go to a different city or go to a different place or turn left instead of right and listen to my heart and do this instead of that, or, you know, go on the journey here instead of going on the journey there, or even just going to India was me listening to my intuition, which was me just listening to God. And I just had this hysterical moment where I started crying and laughing at the same time, where I just was like, I've literally been just listening to God this whole journey, and that's what got me here.
Yeah.
And the moment I felt it, I just felt this like moment of peace and like kind of relaxation where it was like God was like in my head, like, yeah, you idiot. I've been here the whole time. You know,
You've been ignoring me.
You've been ignoring me. And, you know, for anybody out there that doesn't believe in God, you know, I'm not telling you have to believe in God. And I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. This is my journey, and this is what I went through. And for me, this is where I reconnected with God. And through listening to that, a big part of it is like I felt like I was listening to God, and I think God is within all of us. When we pray, we're praying to God, which is in all of us. But part of my journeys was like Him telling me, like, I've been through a lot of my healing. I think part of my dharma means like what your purpose is on earth, is like going back and helping people with their traumas and what they've been through. And that's why I'm sharing this story. It's because this is highly uncomfortable with me. I'm like basically putting myself out there, and I'm sharing all of my insecurities, all of the things that I feel like suck about me, all of the things that do not, I feel, make me look good as a person, because I'm hoping that somebody is going to listen to this, and through my insecurities and my journey and the struggles that I went through, and it's going to help someone, and it's going to help them deal with their stuff. And I can only hope that it does so. And, just as I've gone through this more and more, and we've talked about this, more and more people keep coming to me and talking about their problems and their traumas. And I am happy to listen, and I'm happy to help, because I feel like I've gotten a lot of the healing that I've needed, and I want to support others while they're going through their struggles too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like looking back on like your intuition after all of this, did you figure out why you were ignoring your intuition, or what was causing you to put up a wall?
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with the way I was raised. And my mom, like, God bless her soul, but I was going to be this way. I had to be this way. There was no straying from my path, and any thoughts of what I really wanted or what my intuition was saying, I ignored, and I shut it out my whole life. And now I'm listening. I'm listening hard. And like, even like I told you, with the difficulties I'm dealing with cases, like, not to sugar or anything, I'm being sued for malpractice by a client, and it's because I didn't listen to my gut, and I went with a client where I saw the money, and I ignored everything my heart was saying, which is, this is the wrong decision, because I was trying to use my brain, and my logical brain got me in trouble. And ever since I've started listening to my intuition and my heart, everything's been flowing in my life. And and I'm not saying that everything's rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah.
Sometimes the flowing sucks, because the flowing made me go through all the men's work that I did, which was the worst difficult emotional experience of my life. And I'm not saying that, and by the way, this meditation retreat, I'm making it sound like it's rainbows and sunshines. You know how much it sucks to relive every person you've ever hurt in your entire life?
Yeah. Wouldn't want to do that.
Dude, it was like, oh man, I like literally I think I like physically made myself ill, because I was like using
Yeah, I was
the
going to
restroom.
say, I would have been sick.
Like I was
sick
getting
to my stomach.
like literally getting sick, because I was reliving all of the traumas I've put on other people, and then I relived all the traumas that people had put on me. So it was not a pleasant experience in that sense. And yeah, and
So when you're like reliving all this, are you supposed to be like asking for forgiveness, or like what's the feeling here? Like,
I was forgiving myself was a big portion of it, because I realized, obviously we talked about this before, but I hated myself, and I'd never really forgiven myself or been easy on myself. And so I had to forgive myself, and I had to forgive all the people that I had hurt. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but I do want to talk about like two other things before we wrap up this part of India, and then we'll get to that. But two other things that had happened on this was like I'd never really emotionally let go of Beth. And I spent an entire day too just crying and letting that go. And I actually wrote a goodbye letter to her. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of my friends suggested this to me. There's sometimes people that you need to like call and apologize to, or people that you need to decipher the energy, or kind of close it out with. But then there's other practices that you can do, like writing a letter to that person. And writing a letter to that person can give you the energetic exchange that you need, because you kind of like transmute it and you let it go. And so, like an example, well, we'll talk about it later, but basically I wrote a goodbye letter to her, and I really wept and I mourned, and I let that relationship go. And it was very hard to let it go, but at the end of the feeling and at the end of everything, I felt like it was the right decision, and that it was the right thing to let go of. And then also, there were three reasons. So like my brother, when I was there, he had me praying on three things, okay? Or not, he didn't have me praying on anything. He said, when I go to Penukonda, when I'm doing my process, I need to choose intentions. And he said, usually you choose 2 or 3 intentions. And so my intentions for why I went on that trip was, the first one was to pray for my mother and to help her heal and to suck the negativity out of my family's hearts, because for years we'd been yelling and cussing at each other since we were kids. And so I was there for that. Second was to bring more wealth and prosperity into my life. And at the beginning of the trip, I kept saying to myself, and that I want to be famous. And I kept asking God to make me famous because I've always wanted to be famous. And then the third part was to ask God to help guide me on my life's purpose. Okay. So the first one, God basically told me that for my mother, I just need to keep praying for her and to keep healing with her. And as I heal, I will help my family heal, because as one person heals in the family, everybody heals together. And so if we're all working ourselves and we're all healing and we ask God for help, we will find the healing we're looking for. And what I'll say is my mom and I don't really fight anymore, even though we spent the first 33 years of my life cussing and fighting. We're actually pretty cool now. We get along great.
Awesome.
And the second part, bringing wealth and prosperity into my life and my friends and family's life, God's going to do that. I'm not too worried about it. I feel it, and I'm doing all the steps, and I feel like all my friends and family are doing the steps to that. But the famous part, I was reading a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius while I was in India and at this ashram. And Marcus Aurelius, you know who he is?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
So he's in Gladiator. He's the emperor in Gladiator, and in my opinion, he's the wisest, and he's also the best and most well-documented emperor in Roman history. And it's because he wrote several books that were like his meditations, which are basically his personal journal. They were not meant to be shared with others. They're all written in first person. And I've never been more jealous of another human being reading what they wrote in my entire life. He is one of the most eloquent writers, and he wrote to himself like Shakespeare writes for other people. And that's how he journaled. So you have to imagine the amount of education that an Roman emperor gets, that he's able to just write eloquently in that way. So he talks about living by like in accordance with human nature. And there's like certain virtues that you want to live for, like wisdom, patience, right? And just virtues that you want to strive for. But there's things also called indifference, and things that you should not strive for. And if they happen, great. If they don't, doesn't matter. They're indifference. So one of them is fame. And he basically points out you shouldn't strive to be famous ever, because the sad truth is that the people that make you famous are typically the most common man that are uneducated, and they are whimsical, guided by emotion, and typically not the most intelligent people on the planet. And that is going to be the bulk of the people that make you famous. And so when you strive to be famous, you're basically saying that you want the general masses and the general public, and a lot of the people that are not, the ones that are sitting there doing the thinking or doing the healing or doing the teaching, and you want them to support you, and that's what you're striving for in life instead of finding the validation within yourself.
So you don't want to be famous anymore.
What he said basically is if you become famous as a result of helping others or doing good in the planet and living by your virtues, and it's a byproduct of that, great. But striving to be famous for the sake of being famous it is not good, and it is bad, and it goes against nature, and it basically shows that you're striving for the care and attention of others instead of living virtuously. And so what I changed my desire was, instead of asking God to make me famous, it's to ask him to live by the virtues that I want to abide by as a human being, and the things that I uphold as a person. And if I become famous as a result, great. If I don't,
Great.
it's fine. Yeah, great. And that's why we talked about this before with my social media. I removed, I had like 30 something thousand followers. I just started using an app. I'm down to like 8,000. I'm removing everybody that's like not a real follower, somebody that actually like cares about my stuff, because I would rather connect with the people that are real than keep trying to go this fake journey that I was trying to go just for the sake of being famous. And then the last part and the intention while I was there, which is to ask God to help me find my life's purpose. And I got a lot of those answers, which is one, sharing my story was a big thing that God told me. He's like, you need to go home, you got to share the story. And hopefully it helps others. Two is I've always wanted to be a public speaker. So I think at some point I want to give speeches and talk about, being intentional with your time and energy, and like just talk about a lot of stuff that I've learned. And then I think a big part of the reason that I had not gone down this journey is God basically told me that a big part of my journey is that I was disconnected from God, and because of it, I couldn't get my story across because I just was unsure about why I'd done a lot of things in my life and what was guiding me to these places. And I think a part of my story is also sharing the connection with God and hoping that that helps other people connect with God. And so through listening to that, I basically got to a point where I was like, okay, my life's purpose is to help others who have been hurt like I've been hurt or that have just been hurt in general, and to share my story. And through that process, keep doing the things that I'm doing. And so it wasn't like God told me, okay, go be an engineer, go be an astronaut. It
Mm-hmm.
was just literally basically Him saying, you're on the path right now. Keep doing what feels right and listening to your intuition, which is just talking to God, praying and meditating,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep going down that journey. And so I've been doing that, and everything I've been doing since then feels right, and everything feels correct, and I'm on the journey. And so I want to finish up Penukonda, at least the list that we talked about.
Yes.
You said, how did it, like, what was the question that you asked me?
About the list, I think you had to go back and like relive everything, and then there was a forgiveness part that you had.
Yes, that's
Yes.
exactly correct. Okay, so it's the forgiveness part. So my brother, the process was I had to write this list, and then there's a fire that runs at the ashram 24 hours a day. It's always running. It's called the Sacred Fire. It's the Dunni. And he wanted me to go burn it in there. And it's so funny because every single night at midnight, I was supposed to burn it the last night, it was thunderstorms and raining. I couldn't even go out there because it was raining. And the night that I wanted to go out there and burn it, not a drop of rain in sight. And
Wow.
I go out there, and I broke my silence at this point. I called my brother, and I was on the phone with him. And I'm sitting there with this list, and I'm like standing outside the fire, and I'd been like walking around it and just like looking at it and talking to my brother about like what came up, just a lot of stuff. And he's like, all right, you need to like let it go now. And it's time to like burn it. And I sat there with my hand right outside the reach of the fire, like an inch just outside the reach of the fire, for like a half hour. I couldn't burn it because I realized I had identified myself as a victim to all those stories my entire life. Like, oh, I act this way because this person did this to me, or I do this because I did this to this person, or this person hurt me, so I should be this way. And I realized I liked being a victim, and I liked identifying by those stories. And I'm sitting there like, I literally was like, I can't let this go, because if I let this go, I'm making a conscious decision to say goodbye to old me and to step into the rest of my life, which means I had to let go of those narratives and those dialogues that I'd held on to forever.
Wow. It's like burning a piece of you.
Dude, I just remember like sitting there, and I finally got like the courage to like let it go. And I just like, I probably like imagined it, but I just felt like I just saw the fire reach out and like pull my arm into this thing and burn it. And the moment it burned, just tears just start streaming down my face. And like, I just felt like 20 pounds lighter. And I just remember just like shaking, like vibrating, like goosebumps throughout my entire body. And like, I just was like, I like felt like ill in the sense that I was like, I can't believe I'm letting this go right now. And I walked around this fire for like 30 minutes. I just didn't say a word. And like, I just remembered like trying to think of the things that were like bothering me before I burnt the list. And it was like the strangest thing, because like I told you, I was like, I would get sweaty, I would get anxious, and I
Yeah.
would feel stress. But I just felt indifferent about them. I had made a conscious decision to let those things go, and they're gone.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And it was like, I think what it taught me is like, we are our biggest enemies. We are the ones that hold our traumas. We are the ones that hold ourselves back from being great. We are the ones that help us keep ourselves from growing. It's all us. There's no one else doing it but us. Once you make a conscious decision to go to the next level, or to go to the next person, or to evolve or change, you can do it in an instant. But you have to make the choice. And if you don't make the choice, you're never going to grow, you're never going to change, and you're never going to become the person you want to be. And just all this, like, I felt like just knowledge all in once just started, like, just like, it wasn't even, it was just like realizations that I knew, but I didn't understand. And then it just like clicked in my head the moment I just like let go of all that shit. And yeah, man, I mean, it was such a powerful process, and I have to thank
That's intense.
Dude.
That is intense.
Dude, it was really
Yeah.
intense. It was so powerful, and I felt so good, and like I'm smiling thinking about it because I just remembered like I slept like a baby that night. Like I just went to my room
bet.
and I just had let it all go, man. And you know, like even if I didn't go and like stay in silence, I mean, like, dude, no, I mean, what I'm gonna say is I recommend to everyone to go spend some time in silence somewhere, really away from your phone, from other people, because like each one of those is a layer of distraction. You need to go spend some time with yourself, because even the 4 months I spent traveling before was not as powerful as one day in complete silence where I was sitting there by myself actually just pondering things. And silence means no phone, no internet, no work, nothing. Silence means, the definition of silence to me means you're sitting with your thoughts. That's the only thing you're going to do for 24 hours. No other distractions, nothing. And that's where the growth was. And I left there feeling more rested, more energetic, more happy than I felt in pretty much my entire life. And it was just because I was sitting there listening to myself, listening to my heart. I just was doing, and I'm not saying this like in a selfish or weird way, I was just doing what I needed to do for myself. And it just really came down to listening. And that means emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually to myself. And it was just like this crazy realization that all the answers to the problems we have in our life, if we just listened, they're there.
Yeah.
You're feeling sick, well, maybe you like ate something weird, or maybe you're stressed out, or maybe you have anxiety, maybe you're worried about something, maybe this person's stressing you out. But did you take a moment to think about it? No, I'm just going to go pop a pill, and that's going to make me feel better right now, and going to move on with my day.
Yeah. I feel like that's how a lot of people approach it.
Dude,
You
yeah.
know?
I mean, I think many people
They just try to bury their emotions,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, even as guys, like you're not supposed to show your emotions. Like that's like how we've all been taught. Don't show your emotion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but what happens is it causes problems to your body or your like mental state of mind, because you're just like, you're like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it affects your vagus nerve, which affects your like fight or flight response. And when you're in fight or flight, you're inflamed, your body's inflamed, you're stressed out, you have anxiety, you have a slower digestive system, you actually have physical repercussions. And you know, I think the whole, like a lot of people that say that, I don't know anybody that's been enlightened, but what I believe that when you're meditating, you're supposed to get to a point where the thoughts stop and then you start processing things you want to. Dude, I did 10 days. The thoughts still never stopped. I still have so much to process and things that are still coming through. And it's like, you have to let the train of thought go. And the thing is, what happens is you start thinking about what's bothering you right now, and then it's the train of thought starts leading to other universes and things that like led to you getting to this like place of stressed out, and you start seeing the paper trail. And as you go through the paper trail, that's what brings you the awareness, and then you can start working on the things that you need to work on. And it also taught me you don't need to be fucked up to like have an emotional experience or to think about those things. I know a lot of people think that they need to do medicine journeys. Like you have to do ayahuasca, you have to try psilocybin or, you know, LSD or like different stuff like that. The healing can be done sober. It's just, it's a lot more painful. It's because you feel all the things, you think all the things, and you physically react to all the things. And it's a lot more difficult to turn off I feel it's a lot more difficult to turn off the distractions when you're sober, because you're sober and you can go to the distractions and it's easy to go other places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're doing other things too, sometimes you're not like really like mentally there or like living it, because it's like this fantasy kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So do you still sit in silence, get away from the noise, sit in your closet.
I already came out of the closet, bro.
Yeah.
um, uh, I'm gonna be.
Or you haven't since you've been back. You've just been busy and trying to
been
catch
ve-
up with life.
Yeah, I've been very disappointed in myself since I got back home. I have not been doing the things that I need to every day. I've been doing like the breathing when I first get up. I've been doing morning exercises and movements. I've been working out, but I've not been reading and I've not been meditating. And it's because I'm not behind on work, but I pushed off a lot of things till now. And because of it, I feel super stressed out because of work.
Yeah.
And so I've not allowed myself the time to do what's best for me. So this is a good reminder now that I need to get back into those habits. I'm actually going to Sacred Sons event this coming week.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I will be in nature for 5 days doing the things that I need to do. And so it's going to be a nice little reset for me. But I also do India and Bali was not conducive to remote work life. When I was in the other countries, my work night started at 5 p.m., which was perfect. I worked from 5 to like midnight. In India and Bali, it was 15-hour difference. So my work night started at 11. And I'm on the phone most of the time. So the last month of my trip, I didn't really work. I did what I had to do, but I couldn't work because it was such a time difference.
Yeah.
So now I'm actually paying the piper for the last month of my trip to make up for the month that I basically took off at the end. And so it's okay. There's ebbs and flows in life.
Yeah.
I just took a month to myself to go on vacation, basically. And so I don't mind working really hard right now. And I just need to meditate for the sake of my mental sanity is really what I need to do it for.
Yeah. Where's Sacred Sons at?
It's going to be in North Carolina.
Oh, okay. That's why you're flying out there.
That's why
Yeah.
I'm flying to North Carolina. Yeah, I'm going
Yeah.
out there. And then I'm going to Groove Cruise the week after, which is the same balance that we're talking about. It's like the balance of, partying and also prayer. And it's okay to do those things. It's just
Yeah.
doing them in a balanced and like proper way where it's not taking a toll on you as me as a person. And that's pretty much India in a nutshell. It was beautiful. It was crazy. It was magical. It was everything I could have asked for more, and a place that I really got to reconnect with God, but mostly just reconnect with myself, which is connecting with God.
Yeah. And so do you find yourself like talking to yourself a lot like you used to?
I
Still?
talk to myself in a different way now, though. I'm a lot nicer to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I definitely am a lot more quiet. And I am much more wise with I don't want to call myself wise because I think that's conceited.
Yeah.
I think I'm a lot more selective with my words. I'm not talking as much as I used to. Obviously, this podcast is not a good representation of that.
I know.
But
Like you're doing all the talking.
I'm doing all the talking, yeah. But what I will say is in normal conversations and stuff with people, when I see people now lashing out at others, I just like immediately in my mind, I'm like, oh, that person's been traumatized or that person is suffering.
You approach it a different way.
Yeah, I approach it a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm listening a lot more than talking now. And
Yeah, I used to do that too. And like, well, I mean, like now, like if someone's having a bad day and they like vent it out to me, like I allow it. I'm like, all right, like send it my way. I don't want anyone else to get this energy,
yeah.
and just vent it out, and I'll take that from you.
Yeah,
And then you see them after that, and it's just like they're a totally different person.
Yeah, you're being Hanuman.
Yeah.
You're doing seva.
Yeah.
You're like, people say, oh, don't let people unload on you. I'm like, no, I'm being of service. I've had people hold space for me. I want to hold space for others. And by doing that, you're also having your karmas cleansed, which just is, a fancy way of saying your energy is being cleansed. And God is going to give you blessings for helping other people. And the key is just not, what I've learned for me, the key is just not letting that energy affect you.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm still working on. And
It's hard.
Yeah.
Especially like when someone's going at you, like, like I've been in certain situations, and like I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? But then like when I take a step back and like I just accept it, I'm just like, oh, I know what's actually happening, and these people are just having a bad day, or maybe this person's having a bad day. And at first it's hard to take, and then once you stomach it and you're just like, okay, I'm doing this for a reason, and it'll blow over, and tomorrow or today they'll be over it, and then they'll thank me for it later.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, and they will always thank you, whether they say it verbally or energetically.
Mm-hmm.
God will give you blessings when you help others,
Yeah.
and I've truly believed that. And I'm learning that the greatest joy in life is really helping other people. And as I get older, it's a weird feeling where like I almost want to feel guilty for feeling good after I help others.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to always get made fun of by a lot of friends for people would be like, "Why are you helping all those people? Why are you doing that? It looked like it's taking a toll on you." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's also fun. I enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
like it's really fun to help other human beings achieve their goals and do what makes them happy."
Yeah. Joe Naz, the savior.
Get out of here, stupid. Dude, you've helped me with so much in my life. I mean, look at you, dude. Like, you're sitting here with me, listening to my problems, listening
Yeah.
to my anxieties, and literally, you're not getting paid for this. You get no benefit other than spending time with me, which I know is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
But, dude, like, you know, like, this is a form of seva. Like, you're literally doing seva right now because we're not, like, no one's paying me to do this podcast. I'm paying thousands of dollars for this to be edited and put out there, and I'm doing it and for the hope that it's going to help others. And you're helping me do it, which means you're performing seva by literally hoping that we're going to be able to help other people by what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like there's just something about that, you know, no matter what religion that is, no one's going to judge us or say anything negative about it. We're literally just putting a story out there in the hopes that it's going to inspire, motivate,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like provide some healing, or even just, you know, if someone's going through a similar time, like just listening to somebody going through that struggle helps you to realize things. So right now we're performing seva in some weird way, and it feels good.
Yeah.
Like I'm having a good time.
Yeah. I've had a great time listening to you talk for 17 hours.
All right.
No, but on a serious note, it's great. And, you know, I appreciate you having me. And, yeah, you know, when you first asked me, I was like, for sure, I'll do this, you know.
Yeah,
And-
dude. Let me just show. We'll end it with this. I'm gonna show two things. I'm gonna show a video of my accommodation so you can understand what it looked like. In you're gonna hear me talking too. This was my apartment. Just wanted to say goodbye to this.
Where's
room.
this?
This is Penukonda. This is where I was staying.
Oh, okay.
Never forget it.
Oh, it's not that bad, Joe.
Very humbling experience. No, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Nice decks. Spent a lot of time here. Those are all the water bottles I drank.
Jeez Louise.
It's hot, man.
Yeah. Well, I guess you were there for 12 days. That makes sense.
Yeah. And the bathroom.
What is that, the blood bucket? Jeez Louise, what you doing there?
Wonderful beauty. Yeah. Leaking toilet. Shower that only shouts cold water. Spouts cold water.
That cold water
Beautiful
wakes you up every morning.
And the handle that leaks all over the ground. And the hot water dispenser that does not dispense hot water.
Yeah.
So
They like put it in there just as a joke. They're like, yeah, well,
I went
this
to
is
one
hot.
place which was super cool. This was a meditation spot where Swami went and meditated. Let me just show a video of that because it was that's not it. Sorry. Let me show one video of that and then we'll close this out because it was a really beautiful spot that was like up in the mountains and we had to like take a car to get there. But it was just this like beautiful spot and it had this little beautiful lake and it overlooked all of Penukonda. And dude, it was just absolutely gorgeous up there. And the funny thing is, in the mountains was the only place there was no mosquitoes. Everywhere else there's mosquitoes. What? I don't know. It was just like, long story long, I am not a fan of mosquitoes whatsoever. I do not recommend them. I think I should have gotten Zika virus at one point from all the mosquito bites that I had. It was bad. And that's also one of the reasons I love California. There's no goddamn mosquitoes here, and I love it. Sorry, dude, mosquitoes were a bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone likes mosquitoes, Joe.
Yeah, so that's the pretty view from like there is gorgeous, right? And yeah, on that note, if you're looking to go into madness, into craziness, and you want to reconnect, I don't think look, here's the thing. The ashram that I went to, if anybody has questions about it, I don't know if I can get you in there. I was allowed to go because my brother got me invited. But there's plenty of ashrams and places that allow you to go do Vipassana is a Buddhist thing, but you can go places and do a version of what I did. I didn't do a program. I wasn't part of like a session, but they have programs that are silent meditation retreats. I basically did my own version of a meditation retreat, and you can do it any way you want. Because a lot of people have asked me, well, how'd you do it? Did you have a schedule? Blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is that you're going and you're sitting with yourself and you're going to listen to yourself and you're going to see what comes through.
You are the schedule.
You are the schedule, yeah. And the prayer that I did, though, that is something that, you know, whether you are doing, you know, Hail Mary, full of grace, Our Father art in heaven, a prayer is a good thing. It just kept me on track. But just go and spend some time with yourself, and I think you'll get the answers that you're looking for.
Awesome.
Cool?
Yeah.
All right, chiming out. Later, India.